I've put together a short list of 5 games similar to Monkey Island. Not just related in format of point-and-click adventure games, but specifically pirate-themed point-and-click adventure games. If you aren't familiar with Monkey Island, let's go over a bit of a refresher course. Monkey Island is a highly acclaimed and classic point-and-click adventure game series produced by LucasArts. That would be the video game-minded branch of Lucasfilm. If you don't know what Lucasfilm is, it's the dudes that made Star Wars and Indiana Jones. In the 1990s, they had a very strong reputation as what some could call the staple crop for the entire genre known as point-and-click adventure games. They created critically acclaimed titles still being talked about to this day, like Full Throttle, Grim Fandango, Day of the Tentacle, Sam & Max, and many, many more. Initially, the first Monkey Island was The Secret of Monkey Island, which released in 1990, followed a year later in 1991 by a sequel called Monkey Island 2: LeChuck's Revenge. A few years passed before the third, The Curse of Monkey Island, which was in 1997, and then Escape from Monkey Island 3 years later in the year 2000. In 2009, there was a collaborative effort series called Tales of Monkey Island, in which case the game studio Telltale Studios helped. And lastly, there was a resurgence in Monkey Island in 2022 with the game titled Return to Monkey Island, which was co-created between the LucasArts studio and a studio called Terrible Toy Box. Notably, Terrible Toy Box is the development studio of a man named Ron Gilbert, who was one of the original creators of the first 2 Monkey Island games. As far as official Monkey Island games, maybe an honorable mention here is that there's also the Legend of Monkey Island campaign, which is present in Sea of Thieves. It plays a bit differently because it's like a first-person perspective Sea of Thieves thing. It's definitely worth checking out for any Monkey Island fans, especially if you already have Sea of Thieves. It's like 5 to 10 hours of gameplay. I quite like it, but its existence is a bit divisive within the Sea of Thieves community, because they're just a bunch of folks that want to shoot each other on pirate ships, and they don't care about Monkey Island. Okay, similar game number 1. Ghost Pirates of Vooju Island. This one comes from Bill Tiller as project lead artist and writer. Notably, he is a former LucasArts employee who was actually the lead background artist on the third game, Curse of Monkey Island. It's perhaps a more supernatural-centered adventure as you play through 3 different characters and you play them as humans or ghosts, and of course in the title, Ghost Pirates of Vooju Island, there's also some voodoo magic stuff going on. It does take a little bit of finagling to get it to function on a modern computer, but is a decent game and is overall overlooked. It's just under 7 hours of gameplay time. Despite being overlooked, it did actually spawn a sequel spin-off game, which is our game number 2. Duke Grabowski, Mighty Swashbuckler. This one is pretty short. It sits at around only 2 hours of playtime, and I guess that's gotta be okay because it comes at an exceptionally small price point of only $2 dues. Initially, it was a crowdsourced project that was supposed to expand episodically. It seems like that didn't really pan out the way that they had planned, and now our brutish wannabe captain, Duke Grabowski himself, has only this first short story to play through. I will say that looking at Steam, it does have a very positive Steam review score, and since it's a little bit newer of a game, it does play better on modern hardware. Game number 3, Jolly Rover. The 2010 Brawsome release about a swashbuckling wiener dog named Gaius James Rover steps up to the plate as our third entry here. It has a playtime of something like 5 hours and honestly is about what you'd expect. You can check out my full review on it. Personally, I find it to be a bit middling, but it is definitely worth pointing out if you just can't get enough Monkey Island. Except that in this case, I guess it's Doggy Island. It's not a bad game by any means, it's just really hard for a game to follow in the wake of LucasArts productions so closely. I think it doesn't do enough by itself to set itself apart from just feeling like a straight up like reskinned Monkey Island clone that's just, like a step down from Monkey Island. Now for something a little bit different. Cleo, A Pirate's Tale. I absolutely loved this 2021 release by Christoph Schultz. In fact, I liked it so much that I made a 100% walkthrough guide as well as a 100% completion video review afterwards as well. I thought it had a lovely story, great music, fun puzzles, and a beautiful pixeled artwork. It was truly breathing a breath of modern life into the old genre. It's sitting at an overwhelmingly positive Steam review score, and I personally put just over 8 hours of playtime into it. As a comparison to Monkey Island, though, it is a top-down viewpoint where you do manually control the character movement with mouse keys instead of clicking around. So it sort of plays like the old school Zelda games, kind of, but there's not like combat or anything like that. And of course, in terms of like tone and gameplay puzzles and stuff, it's point-and-click adventure game all the way. And something maybe even more different, game number 5, I'm calling out Peachleaf Pirates, which this one's a bit of a strange hybrid game. Imagine the farming simulation game Stardew Valley, got a fantasy pirate makeover, and then a main storyline quest inspired by point-and-click adventure games, and then was gut-punched a few times by LucasArts humor. Of course, granted, it's a hybrid experience. It's pre-packaged with like this other game type, the farming simulation thing. You can, in fact, play the game almost entirely as the point-and-click style main story and just like ignore the farming aspect. If I remember correctly, there's like a small bit of farming in the tutorial, and then as soon as that ends, you can just ignore all that stuff pretty much and just start doing the puzzles. I did make a main quest walkthrough video for this one as well, and of course a gameplay review. I did not 100% complete this game because I will say that I was almost entirely invested in the story experience rather than like the farming sandbox stuff, but I still managed to play it for 12 hours, which I think is a good amount of time. The story does end a bit abruptly though, which is kind of disappointing if that's your main investment, but I think overall my experience in Peachleaf Pirates was very positive and I quite like it and recommend it. And that's 5 pirate-themed games with point-and-click adventure Monkey Island themes.